Hey friends, welcome back to the Big Talk podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, award-winning director, producer, and author, and this is episode 548. Today, I'm in conversation with the amazing Mark Fujiwara. Mark is the director and a certified portfolio manager at Baird. Mark has almost 3 decades of experience in the private wealth management industry. He is also the author of Superior Results, Maximizing the Value of Your Family Office, just like the super rich. He is also a guest instructor at the Global School of Entrepreneurship, where he teaches courses on family office, mergers, and acquisitions. He's also a dear friend of mine and is on a mission to destigmatize mental health. His goal is that we are all free to talk about mental health as openly as we discuss the common cold. I'm so excited about this conversation. I also want to highlight that he's also featured in Big Stages, a documentary that was featured at the Chelsea Film Festival in October of 2023 about my work with speakers. All right, everybody, let's do this. Mark, I am so excited to have you on the Big Talk podcast. Welcome, my friend. How are you today?
I'm bringing. Look, I've envisioned this since we met on April 9th of 2022. So, but to answer your question, I am having the best day. I woke up at 4, and I had some massive Stella time. I taught her how to jump at the playground, and we just had our first game of pickleball. And
Oh
she
my
smashed
goodness.
the ball so hard on the 5th try that she nearly took my head off, and I was so happy. So that's how I'm doing.
That is a great start to your day. And for everybody who's listening and watching, Stella is Mark's amazing daughter. Do you want to go into that a little bit before we go back
Oh
to
yeah,
the
yeah,
backstory?
absolutely. So Trisha, I have 2 kids, Izzy and Parker. They're 20 and 18, amazing kids, and I got a divorce, and I thought, well, this is it, and which was fine. I met my amazing soulmate of a wife, Amy, 10 years younger, and also had no kids, and I had no idea. It wasn't on her dating profile, by the way, and we're on our honeymoon, and we're in Kyoto, and she just like looks over at me. She goes, "I think I want kids." And I actually should have taken a breath instead of say, can you just enjoy the moment? However, what was so magical about that is that after thinking about this, and then actually on the plane ride home, I thought about like what 10 years fast forward if we had a child or didn't have a child. And I literally would regret not having a child with her just because she's an amazing mom and she's an amazing human, and it has brought us even closer together. So what happened though, I was still on the fence, and then my dad and I were hanging out before his oncologist appointment. He's totally fine right now, and it was an hour, and it just like everything was mapped in the cards because we were like, I thought the appointment was this time, but like my dad, I'm always like, well, this is cool, now I get to hang out with you. And so I actually pose it in a way where I'm like, I'm kind of thinking maybe sort of that Amy and I might kind of want a kid. And he started crying. And these were tears of joy. And the first thing he said was, this is the best news I've ever heard in my entire life. And you should have 10
Oh,
kids, 20 kids. The two of you as parents, oh my goodness. And so I came home and I said, we're having a kid. So we went through all the, because I'm old, she's old, and we're older, and we're doing this fertility mapping, right? It's like 12 months, and the doctor's just, and I'm like sweating, anxiety like crazy. And then a few days after that, she comes up the stairs with a pregnancy test, which I had no idea what the stick was meaning because I haven't seen one for a long time. And she was already pregnant before going into the fertility appointment. So that is Stella, and she is just. I tell this to my friends who hit age 50 all the time. They say, "So how do you keep so young and energetic?" And I said, "You can do it too. Just have a kid." I'm not kidding. It's like, I have to keep up with her. I have to stay on this planet even longer. I have to. be energetic and have endurance so I can run around with her the entire morning like this.
That is so amazing. And I want to just pause you there, Mark, because for those of you who do not know Mark Fujiwara and Tricia Brouk as like, brother and sister, that is who we are. And you just witnessed a conversation that we would have if you weren't listening. So I'm so excited and honored, Mark, that you just dove deep immediately into this podcast, into this amazing call. And for those of you who have not heard the entire story about Amy and how they met and their love story, you can actually hear more about that on Speak. Speak is on YouTube, and Speak is a platform that Mark recently spoke on. And my dear friend George Andreopoulos is the founder and CEO of that organization. So head on over after you listen to this podcast, head on over to the YouTube channel and watch Mark talk about his experience of how he met Amy. He also talks about it in Big Stages, the documentary that he's being featured in, which we can talk about in a little bit. But I just love that you went into fertility, love, babies, how to stay young, energy, all the things that make up the many versions of why you're so fantastic. And I also want to touch on the fact that when Mark and I first met, and I love that you knew the exact date, April 9th, 2022, when we first met, was it in 22 or 21?
22.
2022. Wow. So I love that you knew that date because that was the day that we became aware of one another in our human forms, but clearly we've known each other as spiritual forms for decades, for eternity. So we have always gone this deep, and we've always gone this deep really fast. So this conversation you're witnessing is going to blow your mind for those of you who are listening and for those of you who are watching. I want to kind of take us into, Mark, your backstory. Um, for those of you who don't know Mark and who Mark is new to the audience, he had a debilitating fear of speaking and anxiety and panic around visibility, speaking, even getting up and introducing himself in front of a group. So, Mark, can you just take us back a little bit into what that was like, how that came about, and how you've overcome that right now? Because clearly you're not afraid to speak. You just shared so beautifully and vulnerably about your personal life. So, take us back and lead us to this moment in time with me now.
No, thank you, Tricia. That's super special. I had just gotten out of college and I was in kind of a mini mastermind group, if you will. There's about 8 or 9 of us in this group. Super casual. In fact, we were at a someone's house, and we go into a room, kind of like a boardroom, and we all sit down on chairs in this circle, and the door shuts, and all of a sudden I'm just like, oof, like feeling the claustrophobia. And it was almost like the more I thought about it, the worse it got. And it was like, uh-oh. And just when I thought it wasn't going to get worse, the leader of the group says, everybody stand up and tell me your name and what you do. That's when I feel like I blacked out because of the fact that I wanted to get out of that room so fast. And I was figuring out a way how to get out of here without making a fool of myself. Because going in there, I had so many phobias that were piling on all at the same time. I had obviously agoraphobia, fear of speaking in public. I also had a fear of just in terms of my upbringing. You don't let the family down by leaving a situation, or you don't let your family down for looking like a fool. And so I felt like it was all these things happening, and all of a sudden I'm fourth up in here, and I'm seeing the people coming down the row here, and it's almost my turn, and I just like I'm gonna die. I feel like I'm gonna die, throw up, or pass out. And okay, so I had oh yeah, I had a fear of vomiting, right? So can't do that. And then I had a fear of looking like a fool, so can't pass out. And it's hard, it's true to say this. It's just like I just wanted to die. I felt like that was the third option. I don't know how I got out of that, but since that time, for the 20 or so years after that, until I met you, actually, I have felt like anytime I got in front of speaking in any kind of group with like just a few people or more, um, I'd either cancel out, make an excuse. And it really hit home a little while ago when I was speaking in front of high school students, freshmen and sophomores, and they're hearing me talk about my career. And I just remember like the days leading up to that, sheer anxiety and trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this talk. And my cousin I was supporting my cousin. So if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have done it. um, I ended up doing it in kind of that same feeling. It was just every single time, and it almost felt like um, it just got worse and worse. And I thought I wasn't going to escape it.
It's a real feeling. And I've had speakers share with me before, Mark, that they were on the way to a gig and they were so uncomfortable that they literally wished they had a car accident
Hmm.
because it would be easier than getting on stage. This is real. And it is something that I'm really glad we're talking about because you have such an important message to share with the world. And had your anxiety and fear of sharing it or fear of speaking stayed at the forefront, so many people would not be able to hear from you, and that would be sad. That would be just a loss for for humanity. So let's talk a little bit about what it was in your mindset, or what it was that you did, a technique, if you will, that has enabled you to now not only not have anxiety, but thrive and be confident and captivating. Because that's a really big shift. Can you break that down for our listeners?
No, absolutely. A couple things. It just got so frustrating because I love to share. I love to share with my voice. Um, and it was sad for me because I felt like anytime I opened my mouth, it helped somebody, whether it was through my business or talking about how to inspire people. So I knew I needed to find a way to alleviate that. And just how serendipity works. There's a woman that some of you may know named Mel Robbins, and I was um, I don't know how it happened, but I got into her like little circle of people, a group that she was holding, and I mentioned to her my fear of everything and specific fear of public speaking and fear of flying. So the fear of public speaking, she said, "You're super empathetic. Okay, so this is going to work for you." In fact, that's my number two in my strength finders. She said, "You're focusing. So what's happening? And correct me if I'm wrong," she said, "but you're focusing on that first time that you had the panic attack. You go up on stage, whether it's a group of people that you're comfortable with, your mind is reliving that. So there's really no way out of that. So there's really nothing that you can do because you're just going, well, and the more you do that and the more you relive it, the harder it gets to get out of that." She said, "I want you to try something." And she says, you know, book something where you speak in front of a few people. And what I want you to do, and you're speaking on a subject that is going to help them. What you're going to do is you're going to speak to them and envision. Once you start envisioning that first time in that room with the 9 people and the panic attack, you shift your focus not focusing on the talk, but focusing right after you say your last word and they clap, and then you're looking around the room and you look into somebody's eyes and they are looking at you like, wow, I'm glad you shared that with me. that changed my life, or that improved a lot of things in my world. And as simple as it may seem, and I did work hard on this in terms of practicing and practicing and practicing, to the point that when I did my 100 days out of my comfort zone, which is on that talk, I signed up. One of the things on that list was a talk in front of a group of 100 or more. And so I signed up for a talk that I had in this mastermind. And it freaked me out just signing up for it. But then I actually envisioned what Mel said. And there was like 250 financial professionals in the room. So you would really appreciate this. I actually envisioned like some of the people I knew, and they're in certain seats, and they're smiling afterwards, not during, afterwards, and they're clapping, they're standing, clapping. And then there's this guy over here, just popped in my head. There's this happy guy, just like me, just big smile on his face, and he's looking at me like, "Oh my gosh, you changed every part of my life," and he just wants to like run up and hug me. And I'm like, "Okay, we got this." So I did the talk. It was amazing, and everyone clapped. And during the talk, Tricia, I kept looking over at that same spot, and that guy. There was the guy there from the minute that I started speaking. I'm looking around the room for my friends. I see this guy. He's grinning from ear to ear, just so excited to hear me talk. And so by doing that, and it wasn't like an overnight thing. The more you do that, and in working with you, that just pushed me over the top because of the preparation. Just because of the preparation and because of the way that you've helped me before the talk, memorizing the talk. I mean, that completely changed things. So now it's like getting up on stage is like slaying the dragon, right? Easily slaying the dragon. So it's become super fun for me.
That's incredible. I want to highlight the things that I am hearing you talk about, which is the importance, and what Mel says is absolutely right. And I'm so glad that you were in that sphere so that she could guide you in that way. The visualization, the repetition, and connecting with the one person. The other thing that you do now is you don't make it about you. You're not worried, am I going to pass out? Am I going to throw up? Am I going to embarrass my family? That's all about you, which is why most people have fear and anxiety, because they're thinking about themselves instead of, I'm going to help that person who's smiling from ear to ear. That person is going to walk out of this event changed. What I have to say matters so much that I'm going to impact these people's lives, and they're going to be better because of it. And then the ripple effect of them sharing it and those people becoming better, and then that person sharing it and those people becoming better. And that's what you've really done in terms of your progression as a speaker. So I want to applaud you, but also it's important that you can deconstruct how you do something, right? Because you're a high performer and you're all about productivity, and if you don't know how you're doing it, you can't repeat it and you can't dial it in. So everything you shared is perfect, and I want to just reflect it back for our listeners. Visualization, repetition, super important, right? And connecting with the person who is smiling, connecting with the person who is a full body yes. When you become a speaker or a thought leader or a professional who's putting yourself out there, you are going to have people who don't care what you have to say or who actually hate what you have to say. And that's not our business, right? So that's why I love that you said the one person smiling and you kept looking over at that guy. That was what you needed to maintain that connection with him on stage and to elevate your confidence. I'd love for you to also talk about the importance of vulnerability from a stage, because when you're dealing with anxiety, Mark, and when you're dealing with fear, it's pretty hard to become vulnerable. So how have you been able to do that?
I feel like based off of experiences, that's what I can tell you, because um, becoming vulnerable was the first step, a big step, um, for overcoming a lot of my mental health struggles. The day that I kept this inside for 47 years, and I've had depression from whenever I could remember. I remember my cousin Carson died from suicide, and we were everyone in the family, humongous family. That's just baffling. Can't imagine. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I can. Um, I've had those thoughts before, but you see, I come from a culture that you don't. On one side of the culture, um, you don't show any kind of weakness, and then on the other side, it's kind of the same thing. You just don't. The being physically sick um, is actually looking bad on my parents, right? Um, so mental health struggles, the anxiety, the panic attacks, everything kept it inside. And what happens there? Just completely lonely. So one day, uh, I part of that 100 days outside the comfort zone. I called my cousin, and she's an amazing woman, and she's super strong, and I just felt so safe with her. And I told her everything, just what I shared with you right now. And she's an incredible listener. And then she said, "Same here.
Mm.
I have anxiety. I have panic attacks. I have panic attacks repeatedly. I have depression." It was uh, it was almost like just several years of therapy, if not more, into that one conversation. The other side of getting vulnerable is when I speak to clients, when I speak to other individuals, because for 47 years I haven't been completely honest about myself. Because there's a question that I will ask clients in terms of what causes do they believe in, charity wise, um, and everybody has that. Everybody has. I believe in this cause because I have me, a close family member, has an experience with this, and they would reciprocate that question to me and ask me, "What about you?" And if you look at my charitable contributions through my whole entire lifetime, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, National Alliance of Mental Illness gets thousands of my dollars, thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands. And I would never, ever reveal that to them because I felt like, oh, they're going to, that spiral goes. They're going to think I can't manage their money, or I'm not up to the challenge. And then there they go. And I remember the first time I did that, which was, it's almost like I couldn't wait for that question to pop up. And this client had a family member who had passed away from cancer, so that was his cause. That was his cause right there. And then he says, "What about you?" And I said, my number one cause, suicide prevention, mental illness. Why? Told him about my cousin. Told him the whole story, and you could see on his face, it was almost like his mind is going. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to share something with Mark that's deep. What happened after that was incredible because we were 3 layers down in terms of me asking him questions about his goals and what he wanted to do and about his life, his family. And we went 10 levels down to the point that we kept going back to this number of net worth that he needed. And, mathematical brain goes, you don't need that much. You got 2 kids and you're self-sufficient. You don't live extravagant. Is there something you're not telling me? It's just a number. It's just a number. And we started digging deeper. And after I said that, he shared with me the reason why it had to be this high number. His family member, brother of his, actually, he cared for his brother. His brother had a mental illness, um, genetic genetic disease as well, and loved his brother so much that he pictured in his mind, this is the big giant number that's gonna replace me if something happened to him. This is what I have in my mind. He didn't know how he got that number, but that was his biggest fear, is that no one can take my place. No one can take my place as caring for my brother, that I can care for my brother. Nobody in my family, nobody. And this is the number that it's going to take. Which was interesting, Tricia, because I said, okay, now that I know that, you don't need that net worth. This is what you need. We just buy an insurance policy on you, much cheaper.
Right.
Sell your business now instead of like the 8 years down the road to get to that number,
Right.
which he actually did.
This is so beautiful because what you're sharing with us is that the power of vulnerability, not only from the stage, but when it comes to business relationships. And for those of you who don't know and can go look up afterwards, Mark is in wealth management business and he supports his clients at a very high net worth level. And we have been exploring what it means for Mark to cultivate these conversations with vulnerability first, leading with vulnerability first. And this is a perfect example, Mark, of you doing that enabled this person to share the deeply personal reason that he wanted to have this much money for his family. And then that deeply personal share enabled you to actually do a better version of your job for him.
Exactly. Exactly.
So when you're thinking, listeners, when you're thinking about what it means to be vulnerable and how it's scary and you're going to repel people, it's the exact opposite. You might repel the wrong people, but you're going to attract the right people. And the more vulnerable you can be and authentic and consistent in your authenticity, right? You are the same with everyone you come in contact with, Mark, and same for me. And so our ability to show up consistently and vulnerably is what a attracts the right people to us that we work with and that we get to spend time with, and why we manifested each other. But
That's right.
also it enables you to become a better and more efficient communicator because all that other stuff doesn't get in the way of effective communication.
That's
And
right.
you've been doing that so beautifully. I'd love for you to share a little bit more with our listeners about how you are now cultivating ongoing vulnerability in terms of your business relationships.
Also, based on experience as well, um, I felt I took a big step when I started to tell clients and answer the question truthfully on what my causes were. Um, I'm in a business, wealth management is a business where it's all about scripts. It's all about saying things of, these question answer. We're taught to ask certain questions to get, the revenue, which is manage the client's assets. So typically it start, tell me about your investments, and I never ever do that. It's just like, let's just, like what we're doing now, let's have a conversation, and you tell me about what's important to you, not about your investments. And a lot of
Yeah.
times that's not, we don't even discuss that sometimes it's usually right at the end sometimes. Okay, so um I had this fun experience where I was set to, like, it was a gigantic potential client. Um, so one,
Billions,
what's that?
billions, billions.
Well, let's go 100 million plus in terms of the transaction.
Great.
100 million plus, which is, so I'm in my mind going, okay, it usually takes 10, 11 meetings and build that trust. I was introduced by another a good friend of mine who's a great financial professional, and on that day, uh, it was a sunny day, and Stella was. This is when she didn't go to school, but the nanny and her were playing right here, and she asked me to play with her and do a stuffy race around this desk right here. And I said, "Yeah, that's a great idea." So I told Mara, our nanny, I said, you go home and I got this. I want this. And so for the next 55 minutes, we were playing with stuffies. We were playing our playlists loud. Bruno Mars, for some reason, kept, popping up and up and up. And then the water came out. I don't know how that happened, but the water started, and we were having water fights and like laughing. And then the alarm on my phone goes off, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh right, I have that call, or I have that guy, the big deal's coming up. Oh shoot. And so I said, Amy, get down here, take Stella. So I jump on the Zoom here, and there's a bunch of people that are going to be on there. And he appears, and I'm like in a polo shirt, but it's obvious that, that
You just had a
I'm
water balloon fight.
looking a bit disheveled, and I'm just cracking up. And he says, how you doing today? I said, incredible. You just missed the best water fight with my 2-year-old here. She won, obviously, and he's laughing because he has kids as well. And it's almost like I didn't have a chance to plan. I didn't have a chance to say things, or practice a story, or practice what I'm going to say, or what questions I'm going to ask, or even stalk this guy's Facebook page and know about his dog's name and things like that, which I think is kind of weird anyways, but that's what we do in this business. And so it was almost like just meeting the guy fresh. The other thing that I can think of too is just like, what is my goal here? That's, it quickly went in my mind. What is the goal? The goal is not for him to, or not for me to make revenue. I have to be the leader. I have to be calm. I have to be confident. If he sees that, then we're going to be able to save him about $21 million in capital gains taxes. But if he doesn't, this could drag on, and he might not want to do this. And so throughout this meeting, I'm just kind of observing, and I remember he asked me what I did, and then I was like, whoa, I've never, like, I'm always preparing like what I do, and what came out was just like, holy moly, that was so natural. And for my whole career, it's all about, I do this for these people and blah blah blah. Let me tell you a story. Well, it was a 65-minute meeting. The next day, he calls me up and he says, I want you to handle it. And I said, oh, you're going to do the tax strategy. That's great. He goes, no, I want you to handle the entire deal.
Yeah.
Tax strategy, the deal, manage the assets afterwards. Again, at least 10 meetings. At least 10 meetings. And so from that point on, Tricia, it was like, I resist trying to say, oh, I'm going to say it this way. Because we've been on the other end too. When somebody is going through something that is so polished, it just is, it's detracting. And that's what we're attracted to, the
Right.
naturalness.
We want to do business with another human being who's an expert in the field, for sure, obviously. However, what you're sharing with us, which I think is so powerful, is that when you are fully authentic and truly who you are without apology, that is extremely, first of all, it's super sexy, but it's also, it shows confidence.
Right.
So, and that's what this person was experiencing from you, is absolute unabashed confidence. Like, I just had this most amazing water fight with my 2-year-old, and I'm super excited to talk about, what you care about. And then by the end of that call, he's like, or the next day, I want you to manage everything. And that is a testament to you being able to show up authentic, vulnerable. And that's why vulnerability and business relationships are the only way to go. And that is how you are showing up. I so appreciate having this conversation with you today. We're going to have you back on so that we can go even deeper. We could spend hours talking, Mark. I
Well,
would
this fills
love
me
to
up with
know.
so much energy. So thank you.
Oh, me too. I would love to know, where can our listeners get in touch with you?
Oh, many different places, but markfujiwara.com, fujiwarabear.com. Look at my LinkedIn stuff. I actually just shared something on LinkedIn a little while ago about a friend confided in me on having panic attacks, and
Amazing.
there's some great lessons there.
Amazing. We will put all of this in the show notes. And before I forget, let's do fast talk real quick. You ready?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. What's your favorite book?
Mel Robbins, Stop Saying You're Fine, is actually before she became very famous,
I love that.
and it
Who's your
actually
favorite?
put me in the in this momentum. Yes.
Amazing. Who's your favorite speaker and why?
Somebody different, actually, Kobe Bryant, because
Nice.
he is one that is my alter ego. And before he passed away, 2 months before, I was at a Steve Sims event, and the group asked me, Steve put you in place with celebrities, right? Who would you hang out with and why? And I said, oh my gosh, Kobe. I would totally hang out with Kobe because of his energy and because of what he stands for and the leadership qualities. And then that's what happens. And he is someone that I've shared with my little one, Stella, and my other two kids too.
Mm, yeah.
So near and dear to my heart.
Amazing. How do you memorize, Mark?
Well, from the best, actually, I think the best way to memorize is film a documentary before I'm about to speak. But if you don't have that, I actually like to do different things. So I like to turn on the TV loud. I like to do it while I'm running, and to really know it, so that I like to have that feeling that you can wake me up at 2 in the morning and I can memorize the whole thing, and I could tell you,
That's
word
amazing.
for word.
That's great. And I love the idea of having distractions like having the television on while you deliver it, because there's always going to be somebody who's talking while you're talking. All right. What do you do the day before you speak in preparation?
It's Well, when I'm close to home, it's usually, which I usually am, I have a sauna and a cold plunge. And so I do that every
Awesome.
day. But before I speak, and actually the night before last night, before we had this podcast, I go from hot to cold for about 2 hours, and it just resets your circadian rhythm. You have the most amazing sleep, fires your energy, gets your mind all clear. I also do sprints up the hill or anywhere I can find a track. Um, and then there's another one, which is one of the reasons why I has hung out with Stella so much. I will get as much Stella and Amy time as possible. When I'm away, it's focusing on them. If they're not around, then I have a folder of videos. It's just like, let's go through these videos.
That's so beautiful. What podcast are you currently obsessed with, Mark?
I am obsessed with Andrew Huberman because of the fact that this is where my son Parker and I, who's just graduated, we connect on this level amazingly, and it's spread to the other two kids, specifically Izzy. Izzy's not into, like, oh, doing cold plunges and things like that. She is into health, but it's so lovely that I didn't know he was listening to this, and I started listening to us. It's scientific. It's about improving your health and your energy level and everything around it, with just enough science for him, and not too much for me. So that's what we're hanging out with.
I love it. I am going to put all of this in the show notes for our listeners so that they can take advantage of what you are taking advantage of. Mark, thank you so much for being a featured guest today on the Big Talk podcast. I love you. I appreciate you. And everybody who's listening and watching, be sure to reach out to me on Instagram. Let us know what resonated with you and this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the notification bells and subscribe button so you get access to our newest videos. And remember, everybody, your voice matters. Big love.